Alright, what's up, guys? So this is episode 3 of Horrifying Night's crime show. So next week, obviously, will be the final part of this, and then there will be basically a 2-week break where I don't talk about anything. It'll just be kind of like updates and stuff on what to expect for the next 2 weeks. I like that 2-week break period, and it's only going to be like a minute or two long, and then stuff like that. So So let's begin, because I really think that this episode's just going to be 10 minutes, and the next episode's going to be also just 10 minutes, because even though Son of Sam is one of those people that a lot of people know, So yeah, this week's episode will only be 10 minutes. I am going to get into kind of like when the case was actually reopened after other claims were made, and then get into really the final parts of this case. So let's begin. Confession. Berkowitz was interrogated for about 30 minutes in the early morning of August 11th, 1977. He quickly confessed to the shootings and expressed an interest in pleading guilty. During questioning, Berkowitz claimed that his neighbor's dog was one of the reasons that he killed, saying that the dog demanded the blood of pretty young girls. Wow, okay. He said that the, quote, Sam, end quote, mentioned in the first letter was his former neighbor Sam Carr. Berkowitz claimed that Carr's black Labrador retriever, Harvey, was possessed by an ancient demon, that it issued irresistible commands that Berkowitz must kill people. Okay, alright. This is taking a wild turn, okay. A few weeks after his arrest and confession, Berkowitz was permitted to communicate with the press. In a letter to the New York Post dated September 19, 1977, Berkowitz alluded to his original story of demonic possession, but closed with a warning that has been interpreted by some investigators as an admission of criminal accomplices. Quote, "There are other sons out there. God help the world," end quote. Sentencing. 3 separate mental health examinations determined that Berkowitz was competent to stand trial. Despite this, defense lawyers advised Berkowitz to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, but Berkowitz refused. He claimed he appeared calm in court on May 8, 1978, as he pleaded guilty to all of the shootings. At his sentencing 2 weeks later, Berkowitz caused an uproar when he attempted to jump out of a window of the 7th floor courtroom. After he was restrained, he repeatedly chanted, quote, okay, I can't say that, and shouted, quote, "I kill her again, I kill them all again," end quote. The court ordered another psychiatric examination before sentencing could proceed. During the evaluation, Berkowitz drew a sketch of a jailed man surrounded by numerous walls. At the bottom, he wrote, quote, "I am not well at all," end quote. Nonetheless, Berkowitz was again found competent to stand trial. On June 12, 1978, Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder, to be served consecutively. He was ordered to serve time in Attica Correctional Facility in upstate New York Supermax Prison. Despite prosecutors' objections, the terms of Berkowitz's guilty plea made him eligible for parole in 25 years. Oh boy. Retraction of claims of possession. At a press conference in February of 1979, Berkowitz declared that his previous claims of demonic possession were a hoax. Berkowitz stated in a series of meetings with his special court-appointed psychiatrist David Abrahamson that he had long contemplated murder to get revenge on a world that he felt had rejected and hurt him. Prison life. After his arrest, Berkowitz was initially confined to a psychiatric ward in Kings County Hospital, where the staff reported that he seemed remarkably untroubled by his new environment. On the day after his sentencing, he was taken first to Sing Sing Prison and then to the upstate Clinton Correctional Facility for psychiatric and physical examinations. 2 more months were spent at the Central New York Psychiatric Center in Marcy before his admission to Attica Prison. Berkowitz served about a decade in Attica until he was relocated in 1990 to Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York, where he remained for many years until he was transferred to Shawangunk Correctional Facility. Berkowitz described life in Attica as a, quote, nightmare, end quote. In 1979, there was an attempt on Berkowitz's life in which the left side of his neck was slashed from front to back, resulting in a wound that required more than 50 stitches to close. Berkowitz refused to identify his assailant, and he only claimed that he was grateful for the attack. It brought a sense of justice, or in Berkowitz's own words, quote, the punishment I deserve, end quote. Okay. Alright, and this will be the last thing I will talk about, and then next week we will officially end this case. Parole hearings. Before his first parole hearing in 2002, Berkowitz sent a letter to New York Governor George Pataki asking that it be canceled. He wrote, quote, in all honesty, I believe that I deserve to be in prison for the rest of my life. I have, with God's help, long ago come to terms with my situation. I have accepted my punishment, end quote. Officials at the Sullivan facility duly rejected his case. Berkowitz is entitled to a parole hearing every 2 years as mandated by state law, but he has consistently refused to ask for his release, sometimes skipping the hearings altogether. In his 2016 hearing at the one word, I don't know how to pronounce it, Berkowitz stated that that while parole was, quote, unrealistic, end quote, he felt he had improved himself behind bars, adding, quote, I feel like I am no risk whatsoever, end quote. His lawyer, Mark Heller, noted that prison staff considered Berkowitz to be a, quote, model prisoner, end quote, but commissioners once again denied a parole. And that is it. So, like I said, because there's not so much information on the Son of Sam, there's only so much I can talk about, because I like doing 4-part series. That way I can take a 2-week break off, and so on and so forth. So next week we will officially finish this case. Then I will the next 2 episodes will be basically me updating on what I'm going to talk about next. Then the week after that, I will tell you exactly what I'm going to talk about, every single thing I'm going to talk about, and then officially get into Amityville. Basically, for the first 2 parts of Amityville, I'm going to talk about the actual case itself. I may actually only take 1 week off and then do a 5-part series for Amityville, because first 3 parts talk about the case itself, and then the next 2 parts talk about the paranormal side of the cases itself. So yeah, so that's about it. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.